liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first thing on the agenda is the approval of the July 6 minutes from the commissioner meeting. Is there any corrections, additions, or changes?
No.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to the commissioner administrator updates. Keith?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, commissioners. A couple of things we've been working on the past week and more. The .09 committee met and recommended projects for approval that will be brought before the board for final consideration at our next meeting. Still working on the Rescue Plan Act funding and how we intend to allocate that, identifying kind of the needs and projects in the area that would be worthy of consideration. We expect to be able to bring those recommendations before the board probably in August. Met with McKinstry regarding some of the courthouse complex needs relative to some of the same kinds of issues that we have out at Apple Center, considering an energy audit for this facility, really the public safety building and the corrections center. Pretty significant HVAC and lighting issues there as well that we might want to consider making some changes in. Met with the new judge, Jacqueline Stam. She would like to meet with each of you for a few minutes. So I'm going to ask Shirley to set those meetings up probably on a Tuesday when you're all here, so you don't have to make a special trip. Just an introduction and get to know you so that you know who she is. Sean Sant and I have met with our legal counsel, and we're in the process of getting a meeting together regarding the Paschal Landfill. That's been a long-term issue. There'll be some remediation work that the Department of Ecology wants us to get started on this year. And so we're working out kind of the details of what that looks like and funding through some grants to the Department of Ecology to pay for that work, and hopefully moving us forward in that litigation that's happening. And then our Redistribute Committee has scheduled its first meeting. It'll just be kind of a generalized understanding of what the current maps look like, what they're faced with in terms of a process to get us toward new district boundaries. And we'll be having that meeting next week. Those are the main things I've been focused on.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Peck.
Fairly typical week. Probably things that stand out from the norm. An interesting meeting with the Rural Revolving Loan Fund, which is a federally financed committee within the Benton Franklin Council of Governments. We use federal funds and loan them to high-risk small startup businesses for the purposes of creating new jobs and new small businesses and protecting existing jobs and existing small businesses. The change was a lengthy discussion about whether or not we ought to be taking private residences as collateral for these publicly financed loans. And without getting into a lot of discussion about it, the two merits and the two sides, and the reason it's worth consideration is that if we were to eliminate private residences as collateral, the people coming to borrow from us to start small businesses wouldn't have the assets to start a small business. That's why they come to us in the first place, because their home is typically their largest asset. On the flip side, if we do allow them, then we're going to, it looks like, go to a policy of looking at the 5 C's of lending, the credit, collateral, and character, and so forth, and use a sliding scale as to whether or not we'll take a private residence. That's at issue now because for the first time in the history of the organization, we've had a default where a private residence is in play, and it's no one's desire to foreclose on a private residence, but at the same time, you've got a fiduciary duty, I think, to the taxpayers who put up the money for the loans in the first place. So that was actually about a 2-hour meeting Friday with the COG. Economic Development Committee was part of that. Policies, the Benton Franklin Council of Governments rewriting the bylaws, electing new officers soon to come. The Wasatch Virtual Assembly meeting, you all may have been on it. I know Keith and I were yesterday. That talked mostly about the various federal funds coming in. And I think one of the most noteworthy things I heard was Commissioner Art Swanek from Whitman, who pointed out that you can't match federal funds with federal funds. So if we're looking at infrastructure projects and we're looking at using this federal money, we'd have to come up with match. We couldn't use what is a second round of federal funds to match those. That's going to, I think, be a bigger issue than any of us realize going forward, because it's big dollars coming from the feds, actually coming from the taxpayers, but we're going to have to come up with a match, and we can't use their money for the match. I had some discussions with the port staff that I think are similar to the ones that you gentlemen are having, and other than that, it was a fairly typical week. Thanks.
Commissioner Mullen?
Sat in on the Disability Board meeting and also the Franklin County Emergency Management Board meeting. That was about the extent of last week for me.
Yeah, with you on the emergency management and one other meeting. Excuse me. Okay. Okay. Is that better? Okay. Yeah, I was in on the emergency management meeting, and then there was another typical meeting, but wanted to report on the phone calls that I'm receiving from Franklin County residents about our planning and building department still complaining that they're not able to get into the meeting to meet with them. People are been waiting 2 years now for permits. Just a lot of complaints, and I'm looking for some type of response that people can see that something's being done there. Also on the funds that we're receiving from the federal government, besides Mr. Dockstetter, there's been some other people that are very curious of how this money is going to be spent, and they want clarity on it. So maybe we can post where we're putting this funds at.
Absolutely. There needs to be a very public process for making sure everybody understands where that money's going. We have not committed any
Funds yet.
Right. It's all sitting in the bank waiting for
Okay.
decisions.
The last thing is, would like to announce that there is an email blast now for our Franklin County Commissioner meetings for the agenda that you can receive. If you would like to receive this, please phone in to 546-5856 and request that you would like to receive this, and give your email, and you will receive the email blast. So with that, we'll move on down to the next item here, which is public comment. Is there anybody in the room or on the phone that would like to?
Nobody on the phone yet.
Nobody on the phone? Anybody in the room for public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on down to vouchers, office business.
All right, we have, excuse me, fund expenditures. I move for approval of fund expenditures in the total amount of $377,126.63 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Takes us down to the consent agenda.
Chairman, I'd like to request that we pull item, make sure I've got the right one here.
3, I believe.
That's, yeah, it looks like item 3. Yeah, you're correct. It's 3.
Okay. So I'm looking for a motion.
So I move to approve the consent agenda items 1, 2, 4, and 5, and pull item 3 for discussion.
I'll second that with discussion on item 1.
Okay, there's been a motion to pass consent agenda 1, 2, 4, and 5 with discussion on item 1. There's been a motion and a second. Discussion.
With item number 1, are we simply getting away from selling tax parcels on the courthouse steps and going to internet only, or?
Yeah, it's been, Treasurer's Office probably better equipped to respond to that, but I don't believe we're doing any auctions on the courthouse steps.
Okay.
This program is usually satisfactory for us to get the marketing we need to. See, Rush just walked in the room. Maybe he would like to respond to this.
Yeah, so the courthouse steps are usually done by private sales. We used to have tax foreclosures that we done in here. And about 4 years ago, we went for a bid for assets and our contract has expired. And so we went out and got a new bid, and this was the cheapest bid. And so actually we don't pay anything out of pocket. It's a percent that they pay when they purchase the property.
2.5% put onto the buyer.
I don't want to quote the percent. It's on there. I don't remember exactly what it was.
Okay.
But I believe bid for assets, they went up to 10%. And these were, I believe, at 4.5% that they collect the revenue for us. So that was the cheapest bid.
All right. Thank you. No further questions.
All right, there's been a motion and a second to pass consent agenda 1, 2, 4, and 5 items. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. That leaves us with item number 3, we pulled for separate discussion.
So I received some unsolicited information last evening, actually. I don't know about you all, but occasionally things show up on my doorstep. I'm sure they do yours. And this one included the 4 pages I think Keith has given you a copy of. And this contract is a little different than any I can recall seeing in the 12 plus years I've been here. In Exhibit A, this is page 7 in your read-ahead packet. I'll give you a moment to get there. So let me preface this by saying I'm not taking a hard position for or against this particular contract or the requirement I'm about to speak to. I'm calling it out because it's a departure from what I've seen in the past decade plus, and because I understand that there may be concern in Benton County's Board of Commissioners as well, although I'm certainly not speaking for them. So in Exhibit A, page 7, paragraph 1A3B, this is contractor obligations. And when you get down to 1A3B, it's ensuring staff are able to participate in the Cultures Connecting training supported through the JDAI State Steering Committee, as well as other opportunities when available. That sounds fairly benign. This is an obligation under the contract. So if we accept the $49,000 from the state, we are obligated to make this employees available to this training. And the 4-page handout you got identifies the 3 workshops that are to be provided as training. The first one is Module 1, the framework for social justice and courageous conversations. Number 2 is understanding implicit bias and stereotypes. And number 3 is impact versus intent, addressing microaggressions and unconscious bias. I'm bringing it up today because I don't know what the content of these courses is. Maybe perfectly fine, but I prefer not to accept money in a contract from the state without knowing really what it is we're obligating our employees to. And candidly, I might not have even caught it, except that it showed up on my doorstep with a note that said, you know, we don't think we ought to have to be taking this training. Some people have likened it to training programs in the school system for race theory. I don't know that it's the same. I've not seen the content. I do understand that Benton County is looking at it closely. They won't be taking any action until next week. And so I thought it was worth raising it maybe we take a week, it gives us an opportunity to see what the content is. Maybe it's perfectly fine and productive and we're good with it. And maybe it's not. I would just prefer to know before we vote. And I promised the source that I would bring the question up. So I think I've done that.
Just for clarity, in the, if you have hard copies, it was page 5 that is item 1, 3B that Commissioner Peck read from. Page 7 is the funds, approval of funds in the budget. But
I'm just looking at our read aheads. It was page 7. I think that's because the agenda summary report is on there. Most important thing is that it's Exhibit A, statement of work.
Yeah. And I tend to agree with Commissioner Peck. I think we give it a week and look at what this criteria is before we approve it.
I would agree as well.
Okay, so that will be held over till next meeting. And there, Keith takes us down to administration office business.
Yeah, pretty brief this morning. I'm going to be out of the office first part of next week, as well as Thursday and Friday of this week. And so we did not have a heavy agenda scheduled, so we canceled the meeting for next Tuesday.
Yep.
So our first meeting will be August the 3rd, I believe. Yeah, August the 3rd.
Right.
Will be our next meeting. I don't have anything for consideration for business this morning other than that.
Okay.
Let the public be aware.
And that's what I was going to make that announcement, that there will not be a meeting next week because of that, and that we will have our next commissioner meeting August 3rd. And again, if you want the email blast for the agenda, it's 546-5856. And with that, we're to public comment again. Is there any public comment, any phone calls, anybody in the room?
Nobody on the phone.
Good morning. I wanted to commend you, Mr. Chairman, for this format that you've kind of adjusted the meeting to with giving the updates. I really appreciate, I'm here a lot, and I really appreciate hearing our county administrator give an update on what's happening in the county. And it really struck me what Mr. Peck said this morning about something that's in his careful consideration is about foreclosing on a private home based on a business, especially at the time that we're in right now of COVID and being a tougher time. And that really, it's something new that we've got. And I really appreciate the format where that each of you give an update on what's going on in your world as the representatives of our county. And I think that's been a very positive thing. So thank you to each of you for those regular updates.
And I'll just say thank you very much for, it wasn't my idea. I got to be honest. This was the clerk of the board talked to other clerks in other counties, and this is what they were doing. And we thought it was a good idea, so we adapted to it. So I can't take credit for it, but thank you for recognizing it.
I tried reading through the 400 pages of the American Rescue Plan, and it's a bunch of gobbledygook that I don't understand. And I think it would benefit the community if Mr. Johnson could sort of do a general breakdown of what the funds can be used for and what they can't be used for. So the community comes in with an idea of where they'd like to have the money spent. They'd know up front that's not going to happen. And I'm still reading through it, but I don't think I'll get it done before we ever get around to getting the money out and understanding what it says. And I appreciate the work that you guys are trying to go through and understand that deal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I may just briefly comment that.
Yes, please.
I don't invite anyone to take the time to read that. It is a hard read. And frankly, that's a preliminary rule. They haven't even issued the final document yet. So We don't anticipate there'll be major changes in the final rule, but yeah, it's a pretty complex. And we've learned since that first came out of some of the reporting requirements that are a bit onerous on the county that we didn't anticipate at the front end of this. So we've got to make sure that our auditor and treasurer and my office are coordinated to make sure that the reporting piece of it is keeps us in compliance with the Treasury rules.
It's okay. I'd say one thing more.
Absolutely.
I've been visiting with a few other people about this and short meeting today, so maybe I could share just a little bit with you guys. Just some information in the development world, some stuff that's happening around here, something I know that you guys know this, but different perspective maybe coming from me. A few things that have been announced recently and kind of some of the bigger picture on some of that. So Amazon has announced they're coming to town. Reesers is out here working hard, developing their project out here in our produce processing and so forth. They're working hard, and then Dairygold announced they're coming to town. If you put those three projects together, it's roughly equivalent to $1 billion of growth just in those three projects. In the rough numbers that they have announced, there's approximately 4,000 jobs that are coming with those three projects. There's kind of a number that kind of gets used that's, I think, relatively accurate. When you have two specific jobs that are new, it causes one other job to be created, whether it's a gas station or a hotel or a restaurant. It's kind of a 2 to 1. So if those three jobs are 4,000 jobs, there's 2,000 consequential jobs that are added to that. So that's 6,000 jobs that are equated to those three projects. Another project that's in the background right now, I don't know where they're at, but is the Colville Tribe and the ground that they've got. They're obviously working on it, not going to sit there forever. I've seen a recent clip that they're working on their tax issues with the federal government on that. But looking at that, Dairygold said that they're going to be operational. They're going to turn the faucet on at the end of 2022. That's roughly 18 months from now. That's some tremendous growth that's going to happen in the next 18 months with those. This is something that's neat for us in the Tri-Cities. It's not that we're recession proof, but we know that there's ups and downs. Those three companies are private companies. It doesn't matter if we like it or not, they're going to make it work. They're big, they have backing, and they're going to operate. Whether the economy is good or bad, they're going to operate their businesses. It helps a little bit with a bubble over the Tri-Cities, somewhat like the 2008 recession, where we did have a blip, but it wasn't like some parts of the country seen that was heavily impacted, and that's going to help our area. Areas that I think we in the leadership sides of our community need to really watch for and pay attention to is that this is tremendous growth, and these people are going to have to live somewhere. They have to have roads to drive on. They have to have emergency services, and this is something that's going to require some out-of-the-box thinking from your part, from our part in the development community, and everybody from our sheriff to our police chief to these services there's going to be a ton of pressure put on them. We're going to have to in the administrative side of our county be creative in how that we support these businesses, the jobs that they represent, the families that they represent, and it's going to be something that is going to take a tremendous amount of collaboration from the leaders in our community from at every level, whether it's private business leaders to public positions that you hold. It's going to take a tremendous amount of work with all of us to make this be a successful and a as smooth as possible process. So just thought I'd give you that a little perspective. You guys did vote to expand the urban growth area. I haven't heard if there's been an appeal. There was suspected that there would be an appeal, but we, along with some others, already applied for, and last night at city council meeting, it was our petition to annex. Our intent to petition to annex was accepted by the city of Paschal last night, so that process is moving forward. This project that I'm working on specifically in that area has They accepted over 600 acres to be annexed into the city, and that process is certainly moving forward. And we've got some big challenges and big opportunities in front of us. And it's a little bit scary for all of us, I'm sure, but it's a big opportunity, and looking forward to seeing this process move forward with our county and our city and everything that represents. And it's we're in for a wild ride. Hang on.
Thank you. Keith, has there been any update on that that Mr. Baumann spoke about there?
On which
Any
one?
appeal on the growth
I have
management?
not heard of any appeal. No.
Okay.
They're not expecting one until the end of the 1st of August.
So right at the end of it.
They appealed Benton County the day before.
All righty. Well, with that, we are down to the end of our agenda here. And if there's no more public comment, is there anything else for the good of the county? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned.